Well, as Cole said, the debate, quote unquote, about the JRD is going on now. I've been caught some of it. I was speaking to a group in Needham earlier, so I missed the beginning of it, but probably it'd be worth watching if there's a recording, not because it's so much a debate, but just to get some insight in what the people on the other side are saying. I mean, I caught Lindsey Graham, who was absolutely deranged. We don't expect it to pass. The question is how many votes it will get. And, I think there are 6 or 7 senators who have confirmed they're going to vote for one or more of the resolutions. Maybe we'll get to 10, maybe more than 10. We'll have to see. Notably, some of you saw an email yesterday, the Service Employees Union, which is my old union
Yeah.
and has 2 million members,
Oh,
supports the restriction of aid arms to Israel. And last week, the Boston Teachers Union also came up with a resolution for that too. So that's all positive. We'll have to see what develops. Otherwise, in Gaza and Lebanon, pretty much the genocide goes on. Aid, despite what Israel says and what the letter from the U.S. State Department said, Israel has been severely restricting the aid which is entering into Gaza. And notably, a story that was first broken in the Israeli press, they have been basically facilitating the robbing of whatever aid is going in by Palestinian gangs in Gaza that apparently are holding trucks up for ransom and kidnapping drivers and trucks with the assent of the Israeli military, who was quite nearby. And part of this is made possible by the fact that the Israeli military has been killing any security forces and police who are not combatants, but when they try to protect or organize the distribution of aid, typically they've been killed. And just the other day, when one of the few aid trucks arrived in northern Gaza to be distributed at a school, Israel bombed the school and burned the aid when it arrived. So we're not surprised, but the horrors are, just mount up. And in Lebanon, they continue to bomb the towns and villages near the border, as well as Beirut and elsewhere. And apparently, their aim in southern Lebanon is to turn it into a kind of Gaza, that is a sort of uninhabitable no-go zone in which they will freely fire on anybody there in order to, and from their point of view, keep the resistance out of the border area. There is talk, by the way, has been chatter for a week or so about the possibility of some kind of ceasefire agreement in Lebanon. The sticking point is that the Lebanese government is willing to, and Hezbollah apparently is willing to abide by the Security Council resolution that ended the 2006 war, but Israel wants to reserve its right to invade and bomb Lebanon whenever it decides it's appropriate. And of course, the Lebanese are not going to agree to that. Otherwise, just today, the fourth UN Security Council resolution demanding an immediate and unconditional ceasefire was voted in favor of 14 countries, including 4 of the 5 permanent members, and of course, again, vetoed by the United States because it was unconditional. And the U.S. insists that releasing the prisoners held by in Gaza should be at the top of any resolution, and that's why it was vetoed by the U.S. Again, an illustration of how isolated the U.S. is becoming because of its unconditional support for Israel. Very few countries in the world are willing to stand with no one on the Security Council, and only a handful of countries in the General Assembly are willing to stand with the United States. the new post-election landscape, political landscape in the United States, of course, in the short run, is even more fanatically pro-Israel than the Biden administration has been. And the new Senate Majority Leader now, Thune from South Dakota, has declared his 100% undying support for Israel. And of course, because they have a majority in the Senate now, they'll be able to control the agenda, and who knows where that's going to lead in terms of any resolutions that come forward. In the House, supposedly this week, there's going to be another vote on the House bill promoted by the Republicans, primarily to allow the sort of defunding and decertification of charitable organizations if they are charged vaguely with supporting terrorism. Of course, it's already illegal for any U.S. organization to support terrorist organizations overseas, but this would allow the Attorney General to unilaterally declare them illegal, these organizations illegal as nonprofits and as charities, and they would have to prove they're innocent. They can be cared guilty until proven innocent, as opposed to the other way around. So it's expected to come to a vote, and it's expected to pass because already in the first round, when it required 2/3, there were enough Democrats voting for it, 52, if I remember, so that it will pass. And what will happen in the Senate probably will be taken up in the Senate as well, and we'll see if the Democrat caucus in the Senate has the nerve to filibuster it, which could stop it. But if it comes up for a vote, it will probably pass in the Senate as well. So that's it. Of course, the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, which is now stuck in the Senate, will probably come up for a vote. According to Schumer, it will be part of the defense appropriations bill. Maybe the Senate leadership, the Republican leadership, if it happens after the new leadership takes position, it may be for a straight up and down vote and a roll call. And we'll see what the Democrats are willing to do then. So that's all in the sad story of what's going on. I mean, things only get worse. And by the way, the Biden administration has been lobbying very hard against the JRD resolutions. And not that they had to. Of course, AIPAC has been running ads in the districts where senators may vote for it. The Biden administration has basically said voting for this is a vote to support Hamas, which is like what AIPAC and the crazy Israeli right wing says. So we're in a sad situation, and I see the comment from Amna that Lindsey Graham was vile. Yes, it's worth, as discussing it may be, I'm hoping to come back and watch the full debate when I get a chance. So that's it. Any questions and comments? We can move on.
Abby.
I want to know, so this idea of terrorist organizations, I mean, terrorist is open for interpretation. And so anyone like MAPA who is hosting webinars by Palestinians or having our, supporting the JRD and such I think are in jeopardy. So Cole, how concerned is MAPA that this thing will pass and what might transpire?
I think Jeff can take that, but.
Well, the Republicans are not 100% in favor of this. Since the original vote, there are some in the Senate that have voiced misgivings about it on libertarian grounds. And who knows? I mean, among the original people that voted no for something like this was Jake Auchincloss, for example, who surprisingly. So we'll have to see, but I think there's a good chance it will pass, and then it's very dangerous, right? I mean, they can decertify you until you prove otherwise. And of course, what constitutes support for terrorism is a very elastic concept. So
Jeff, it means that they can decertify. Cole, can you mute people? It's just really annoying.
Yeah, something's very loud.
Jeff,
Not coming
decertify
from me, as
means
far as I can tell.
decertify them as a nonprofit. Is that the idea?
Charities, yeah, not nonprofit, but charitable organizations, you know,
So they can
501c3.
can they continue to exist in some fashion?
Well, I don't know. That's a good question. But if they're certified as supporting terror, certainly can't exist as tax-free charities. That's for sure. Whether they can be prosecuted and dissolved altogether, God only knows. That's certainly
That would be a different thing. I mean,
Yeah.
really the state, approves nonprofit organizations. It's the IRS that decides whether an organization is contributions to an organization or 501c3 tax deductible. So that's what's being attacked by this. It is expected to pass. I don't know, the maneuvering.
the long run, I mean, the only way we can maintain this crazy Israel first policy is by repression, because it doesn't have the support of the majority of people in the United States. And we're in for a lot of that, I'm afraid. That's the game plan of Israel's, most ardent supporters in the United States, is to repress any resistance to this policy, because they can't win an argument. They will use the force of law to impose their view, and that's very dangerous. That's the direction we're heading. Of course, we're seeing it on college campuses. Now they're the most vulnerable, maybe, and who knows what's next.
Jeff, what's the official name of this bill?
Anti-Semitism Awareness Act.
I forget. You could look it up. It's
No.
H 9495.
9495. Okay, thank you.
It's something the ending support for terrorists or supporting organizations in the United States, something like that.
All right.
Okay, Zarina's next.
Yes, I had two quick thoughts. One's I just saw there are some sanctions by the U.S. Treasury to the senior Hamas members, and so that was interesting because I was listening to the Palestine webinar that was happening on Saturday, and I just was watching the broadcast. So it said about sanctions, and I looked it up, and we see this going on. I wonder how much this is going to affect the anti-Semitism awareness and also the charities to the mosques. I'm concerned about that.
Yeah, I don't know. By the way, there was a very good editorial. I mean, there are lots of opposition to this stuff, but there was a good editorial in the Jewish online magazine, The Forward, saying that, basically a repressive anti-free speech society is bad for the Jews and that they should stand up for that. So I recommend you check that out.
Amy.
Anyway, thanks, Jeff. This is the group that's concerned about Gaza and Lebanon. But I certainly have to say I'm just continue to be alarmed with the escalation of the United States escalation in Ukraine, and from sending the missiles to now discussion of anti-personnel weapons and mines. And it's just horrifying. And I'm just wondering if anybody shares my outrage. I'm sure you all do. And if anybody else has anything to say about any of this, it's very lawless, it feels to me.
I'll just jump in organizationally and say MAPA has a campaign, Ukraine in Time for Peace. I know that they're very agitated about this, and I believe they're meeting Friday morning at 10 and to them, they would welcome new members. But yeah, maybe more. Go ahead, Jeff, and say whatever.
I mean, one of the relevant aspects of that is that whatever one thinks about the war in Ukraine and Russia's culpability, the response has been so drastically different. And again, right or wrong, what the Russians are doing in Ukraine it pales in comparison to what the Israelis are doing in Gaza, and yet they have been sanctioned. by international organizations, the United States, the UN, and their football teams have been kicked out of the International Football Association, whereas Israel's, continue to be, carry out basically their own sort of riots wherever they, kind of Zionist riots wherever they appear. And it's just the disproportion of that is so hypocritical. And of course, most of the world recognizes that. Even countries which don't support the Russian, side in Ukraine recognize the hypocrisy of the very different responses to that. That's
Yeah.
reflected in the UN votes in the General Assembly and the Security Council.